a lot of political campaigns actually go to, I don't know what the term is, basically they die because of technology. Someone catches them doing something stupid, like this guy was at Union College and was caught at a frat party and his campaign basically died. How do you prevent, I mean, in an internet age, how do you prevent yourself, how do you keep an eye out for doing stupid things? Like this, yes. And having that leak out to the public.
Every campaign in the modern age is more close to having a near-death experience or a death experience than campaigns have been in the past, because of the ubiquitousness of cell phone cameras and the ability to tape people doing stupid things. Now, this is a good thing. Why is it a good thing? Because the major media is dying before our eyes. The fiction writers at the New York Times are soon going to be looking for work, because papers like venerable American institutions are going out of business because their business model is not working. And they've lost a lot of readership because they've lost credibility by being so hyper-partisan. And so what's happening, I've seen it up in Sacramento, almost every week now we lose a Sacramento-based reporter. And because of that, the media is becoming less and less and less able to perform one of its key roles that the Founding Fathers saw the media performing, which was that of public watchdog. That's becoming less common now. I think in its place, you have this hyper-speed, crazy, some of which can be made up through, inventive usage of Photoshop and other means. You have this almost like a national enquirer 24/7 via the internet that is going to take its place, kind of gotcha politics. And some of that is good, some of that is probably not. But what I would argue is that candidates who are well prepared, who are stable, they don't have anything in their background that they're terribly embarrassed about. There was that one time, no. And they, if they have a consistent philosophy that they're not willing to constantly try to be all things to all people, you could kind of get away with that 20 years ago before the internet, when people could cross-check things. Now it would be more difficult to cross-check things. Now with the internet, it's very easy to find inconsistent statements from people that they were either trying to please everybody or they just didn't have enough of a core philosophy to even really know what they were saying. And so what I would say is that the phenomena that you've spoken about, in my opinion, probably 80% of the casualties are people who deserved it. And it's good that they're being winnowed out of the process. There will be the occasional person who maybe they were just spending too much campaign time on the road in the 57th state. May have misspoke. As we certain individual living in the White House now say it's campaign room. So does that kind of?
Sort of, but I mean, like, how do you prevent people from taking things completely out of context?
You can't.
Say you're at CMC, then someone photographs you walking by the pirate party.
It wasn't me! I'm not a crook and I've never been a pirate. No, I mean, that's, you just have to have a certain amount of common sense, I think, and just tell the truth, too. I mean, Americans are very forgiving when you don't try to pull the wool over their eyes and lie to them. I think they are. Every American except my wife. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just a follow-up question to that. When the media will take your words out of context, as they certainly will, what do you do for damage control?
What I've always done, and again, this is not something I think every politician is easily able to do, but I generally, for the last few years, have been getting more media than any Republican legislator consistently, with the exception of the two Republican leaders, whoever they happen to be at the time. I think the reason for that, number one, is I always return phone calls. I'm very accessible to the press when they call. They never have to, I'm not prepped by my staff, like, oh my gosh, what's he going to ask about? Spend 3 hours figuring out what it is that we're going to say. And so what I found is that because I've already developed that, if a member of the press misconstrues something, you try to get, first of all, correction. You let them know you care about the truth. And generally speaking, if you've been accessible to them, they'll try to do right by you. We had an interesting example of that recently that had we not corrected it, could have come back to hurt us in the primary campaign if someone substantial jumps in this primary, and might still be a problem just because you can always take out of context the article, as it did exist prior to its correction. And it was a case where they kind of misconstrued something I was saying about taxes, and we called them up and said, you didn't quite get it right. What we were saying was, theoretically speaking, if you had to do something along these lines, this would be the most benign, least harmful to the economy, most transparent way to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm against it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and the correction was put in. So I think the main thing is to be proactive. I had an interesting fight in my first year where I went to the only state park in my district, Crystal Cove State Park, in between Newport Beach and Wheeling Beach. And at the time, we were still coming out